What was the biggest diplomatic failure for India ever? If you look at these scenes, this was what was happening 2 days before the G20 summit kicked off in Jammu and Kashmir. Lot of checkups, high security in the entire region. Delegates from all over the world were coming to attend these meetings, except a few countries, and one of the prominent ones was China. The official spokesperson from the Foreign Ministry of China has released this statement. China firmly opposes holding G20 meetings in any form in disputed areas and will not attend such meetings. Well, he's not talking about the India and Pakistan conflict. He's talking about the conflict zones between India and China. And one of the primary ones he's talking about is in the Kashmir region, Aksai Chin. Well, as a country, we speak a lot and we know a lot about the India-Pakistan border issues, but we do not emphasize a lot about what happens on the other end of the spectrum, India-China border. What are the issues over there and what are some of the failures that Indian governments from the 50s and 60s have committed that led to the tense situations on the other side of the border. In this video, we are going to stick to the facts as much as possible and try to understand what led to these situations that we are facing today between India and China. So let's get started with the video, and before that, a quick request, please do share this video with your friends so that people are also aware about the issues that India is facing on the India-China border. And before we jump into the video, understand that the entire border dispute, at least from the Ladakh region perspective, is primarily boiled down to one region called as Aksai Chin. Aksai Chin is a region located in the northern part of the Indian subcontinent. The area size is 37,244 square kilometers. Historically, it was not a populated region, mostly inhabited by nomadic groups and also small settlements. It's a high altitude plateau, barren terrain, rocky mountains, and vast stretches of uninhabitable land. Famously, on December 5th, 1961, Jawaharlal Nehru, the then Prime Minister of India, famously said in Rajyasabha that this is a place where not even a blade of grass is growing right now. That has been the stance of India towards Aksai Chin. If you look on the other end of the spectrum, how did Chinese perceive this region to be? If you look at from their territorial view, it is located in the southern west part of the Xinjiang region, bordering the Indian administered region of Ladakh. The region is super important for China because it connects China's Xinjiang region in the northwest to the Tibet in the south. It acts as a gateway. The China National Highway 219, which runs over 2,000 kilometers, the road goes through Aksai Chin. And the road itself was completed in 1957. And India did not say anything at that point in time because Hindi Chini were bhai-bhai. There was never a conflict with our neighbors in the east. However, there were three primary issues that happened in the 1950s and early 1960s which led to the Indo-Sino war in 1962. We all know how that war ended up for India. 1,500 casualties on the Indian side, another 1,500 on the Chinese side. Along with that, there were another 1,500 Indian soldiers who went missing. Now, the lead up to this war is pretty muddy. To start up with, let's go back to 1954. The maps that were released by Beijing in 1954 claimed that Aksai Chin was in the Chinese territory. And when the Indian government brought this up, they mentioned that it was a mistake and we will correct this mistake. This happened in 1954, and the Indian government at that point in time neglected that issue. They did not pull the Chinese folks into a conference room and they did not try to settle the meeting by sitting across the table. They just neglected that event. And in 1957, they started to build roads. While we talk about what was happening in Ladakh, there was also another conflict zone between India and China, that was Arunachal Pradesh. And India and China both were claiming their hand in the territories in both these regions. And in 1960, however, the then Chinese Supreme Leader Zhou Enlai virtually forced himself upon Nehru in New Delhi in Feb 1960. They were going great lengths to demonstrate their desire for negotiations through whether it is the Aksai Chin region or the Arunachal Pradesh region. However, the then Indian government neglected their negotiation requests. They moved from one cabinet minister to another cabinet minister. But Zhou Enlai, the supreme leader of China, faced nothing but humiliation. And in fact, when he went back, he made sure that they were ready for a war that was coming up in 1962. The third mistake was again coming from the Indian government only, which was the forward policy. The forward policy that was adopted by India towards the India-China border was nothing but they encouraged the Indian army to set up posts in forward areas which were usually located in remote and difficult terrains. Well, even supplies, food, equipment, arms and ammunition could not be supplied to these regions. This was seen primarily as a proactive measure to defend India's perceived territorial markings, the border, and prevent any further encroachment by the Chinese forces. These three things, if India would have done differently, our relationship with the Chinese neighbors would have been extremely different. Think about it for a second. India-China working together to basically face off all the other regions in the world. It would have been a completely different story. But all the three things, when India had an opportunity to bring China into the negotiations, they ignored. And when Chinese supreme leader came to India for negotiations, they neglected. And finally, they instigated and they provocated the Chinese by adopting this forward policy. Well, none of these things were documented anywhere on the internet except the post-mortem report of the 1962 war, which was prepared by Lieutenant General T.B. Henderson Brooks and Brigadier P.S. Bharat, actually was published in 2014. The report prepared in 1963 did not see light until 2014. And these commanders and the lieutenant generals were not even allowed to inquire about what happened at the policy level in the Supreme Court. Their inquiry was primarily limited to the tactics. Now you can see and you can claim any of these facts as errors, but end of the day, we need to acknowledge and accept our mistakes so that we do not commit any of these things once again in the future. Now, what is the current situation with respect to the India-China border? And why is this situation heating up once again? For that, we need to go back into 2013. China has started the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI initiative, where it is going to invest in 150 countries in different sectors, infrastructure and energy sectors primarily. Well, India did not participate in this initiative because, according to the Indian government at that point in time, they mentioned that connectivity initiatives must follow principles of financial responsibility to avoid projects that would create unsustainable debt burden for communities. And that is the reason why India has rejected the invitation to join the Belt and Road initiatives. Pakistan, on the other hand, took that initiative and they currently owe approximately $70 billion, which is almost equivalent to 9% of their entire GDP. Then what was the development that was carried out by China in Pakistan? To start off with, it was China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, which passes along the Indian border extremely north of the Karakoram range. The China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is a flagship project of the BRI aiming to connect the Gwadar port with China's northwestern region of Xinjiang. It includes transportation, infrastructure, energy projects and special economic zones as well, such as highways and railways. For example, the Orange Metro line in Lahore region was constructed by China as part of the Belt and Road Initiative. Now you can see how much they actually developed the country, but now because the debt is so high that Pakistan cannot repay this debt, they do expect diplomatic favors when it comes to the China's foreign policies. The other issue that China also has with respect to India is how India has developed the DSDBO route along its line of actual control in the Ladakh region. The DSDBO route starts from the Daulat Beg Oldie, which is one of the highest airstrips in the world, which is situated close to the line of actual control between India and China. The road then follows the Shyok River running through the rugged and challenging terrains. The DSDBO route is strategically important for India because it allows for better connectivity and access to border areas with China, especially it's an all-weather road. Previously, the border roads between India and China were subjected to landslides, flooding and erosions due to the Galwan River's unpredictable current. The updated DSDBO route, which took almost 20 years to build, basically helped India improve its access, deliver better supplies and also build stronger military presence across the India-China border. That's another issue as well. The third issue is how India has built a strategic relationship with Australia, Japan, and United States. The Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, Quad. Well, they don't explicitly say that they are against China, but majority of the discussions that happen in this region are against China. Now the question is, can India afford a direct conflict with China? The answer is absolutely no. Chinese military might is almost the same as the US military might. And you can imagine it's not a good option to go against them. India has spent recently close to 20,000 crores to improve its military capabilities, especially to counter the new security challenges that are in the midst of the lingering bordering disputes with China in the eastern Ladakh region. This was highlighted in a budget document that was coming out on 31st Jan 2021. If only the diplomacy failure did not happen. If only we would have done differently in any of those three situations that we discussed previously, whether it is 1954, whether it is 1960 or 1961, the outcome and the relationships between India and China would have been very different, and the world geopolitical order might be very difficult to imagine how it would have played out. Thank you so much for watching. Please do share it with your friends so that we understand, we acknowledge, and we also accept our mistakes and not repeat them going forward. Thank you and see you again. Bye-bye.